So Jason Tatum has torn his Achilles. And this is an injury that not only affects just him, at least for the right now, but also in the future. This type of injury of Achilles can be a career alterer. Now, the Celtics have said that they expect him to make a full recovery, which is great, because that's what's most important, is making sure that Tatum is taken care of and is going to be well just after basketball. But looking at right now, the Celtics aren't going to win this series, and I don't see a way in which they even win next game without Jason Tatum, because of all of the stuff that Jason Tatum does makes everyone else around him better. Because early on in this series, when he was inefficient and they went down 0-2, he was still averaging well over 15 rebounds a game. So even on his poor shooting nights, he's still one of the best players on the floor just with everything that he's able to do. And I think Boston won't be able to recover from that. And just looking at the future of what this Celtics team could be is kind of bleak in this scheme of things. Because I think that this was the last time that we have ever seen Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown play on the same court again. Because I don't see a way in which they can keep Jaylen Brown after not only this year, but after the repeated struggles that he has shown in the playoffs with ball handling, being a true playmaker, and being a good number 2 option when Tatum has to either sit on the bench or when he's not at 100%, or just overall. Jaylen Brown has not been the player that he has been paid to be. And so looking at next year, the money that they will have to pay 4 people over $30 million, and they will have to pay 2 more people over $10 million. And so they are just going to be so expensive of a team to pay. Because right now, on the books, they have $939 million guaranteed to players. That is insane. Next year, they will be paying Jaylen Brown $53 million. Next year, they will pay Jrue Holiday $32 million. And Jrue Holiday is getting older. He is not the player he once was. He is not an all-star anymore. I don't know if he's even a starter anymore on a championship team. So, just figuring out what you're going to do with Jrue Holiday, and then what you're going to do with Kristaps Porzingis, because that Kristaps Porzingis experiment, at least for Porzingis, has failed. Because Kristaps Porzingis was brought in to be someone who could take the weight off of Al Horford, and to make it to where Al Horford doesn't have to be either a starting player or someone who doesn't need to play a ton of minutes. And Al Horford, at least in stretches when it's mattered most, has outperformed Kristaps Porzingis. He's been more available than Kristaps Porzingis. And in some stretches, he has looked like a better player than Kristaps Porzingis. And you can't pay a guy, at least in the final year of his deal, that's not a player option, $32.5 million. Because Al Horford is coming off the books at the end of this season. And you don't know if he's going to retire because he is 38 years old right now. There is no telling what he is going to do. Jrue Holiday will be going into the season as a 35-year-old guard. Already showing signs of regressing. And so, assuming that Tatum will not play next season for the vast majority, and that time that he could come back would be as if they made the finals. But I don't see a way in which this team will be good without Tatum, and I think that they need to kind of do what the Golden State Warriors did the year before they won the title when Steph Curry got hurt. Now, the difference between what the Warriors did there was they actually tried to contend. It's just that Steph Curry broke his hand a few games into the season, and so they kind of were forced to do it. But you just can't roll into the season with Jaylen Brown being a number 1 option. Because he's going to get exposed. And as much as I think Jaylen Brown is a good player, he's not a number 1. I don't even know if he's a number 2, at least with the ball in his hands. And so I think he's best suited for a number three, to be the number three creator on offense. But I don't think that you can afford to keep him on there and sacrifice the depth which has made this team so great. You can't afford to do that. Because, at least in my opinion, you can't have three guys making $110 million that I do not feel confident in showing up when it matters. I don't think that is sustainable to be a playoff team, or at least a playoff team that has serious hopes of contending. So I don't know entirely what you do with Drew Holiday, because I don't know if anyone's going to want him for that type of money that he's making. So maybe you just bring him back and you just swallow the bullet, and you just bite the bullet and say, all right, you know what, you'll come back, you'll be a sixth or seventh man off the bench, and you can be a good defensive contributor in those minutes. But with Jaylen Brown, I think that it would be ludicrous if you didn't try to trade him to the Rockets. Because you can try and get a pick back, and Boston's already in a pretty good position with their picks. They aren't just completely depleted like the Suns are. They have a way forward. They have a couple of picks that they can, I would prefer, keep if next year they decide that they want to kind of tank and hope to get lucky in the lottery like the Dallas Mavericks did this year. But I think that you need to get rid of Jaylen Brown, and I think sending him to the Celtics for a package of maybe someone like Tari Eason, a couple of firsts, and if you want to get a guy like Cam Whitmore, I think that would be a trade that would be good for both sides. And I'm assuming in that trade you'd have to throw in Dillon Brooks, which I would really like for the Celtics, as that gives someone who can replace that fight mentality that they didn't have when Marcus Smart wasn't on the roster. But I think that if you can add a guy like Dillon Brooks, who's a very good backup forward, and is very good on the defensive side of the ball, and is a decent 3-and-D player, I think that is something that's an archetype that is very sought after, and can bring the fight back to the Celtics. And for Kristaps Porzingis, I honestly don't know what team might want him, not because he's a bad player, but because he's so inconsistent and he's so injury prone that it just makes it so difficult to trade him. So I'm not going to come up with a mock trade for him. But I think that you have to get rid of some of those guys making top dollar. I think you have to brace for some of the larger contracts coming in, like Peyton Pritchard, because his contract is going to be stepping up. Even though he's on a really good deal, I'm surprised that after this he's not going to want to renegotiate for more money. I think that would be something that he would want to do. I think that you need to do your best to keep Al Horford, which is going to take maybe $10 million. And you need to make sure that you have enough depth. Like Luke Cornett, I think you need to bring him back, and so that could be $4 million. So right there, just by bringing back your big man depth of Al Horford and Luke Cornett, that's $14 million right there that you're going to have to dish out. If you bring in any rookies, those are guys you're going to feel their impact. And then you have to see a rise in Sam Hauser's money by $8 million. So that right there is $22 million that I think you are going to have to move forward with. And then Jason Tatum's contract will go up by $20 million. $20 million. So that right there, I don't know how they're going to play it with Tatum, if they're going to do what the Bulls tried to do with Lonzo Ball, where they're going to try and move the money over. But just say that they have to pay him that money upright. That right there is $40 million of an increase that you are going to have to pay for a team that is already the most expensive team in the NBA. Their window to win was now. And that was taken from them by Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown. So, in regards to Tatum, I am hoping that you can recover well. I'm hoping that you are given that time to fully recover and that you're not rushed back from that injury. But I think the Celtics are a smart franchise and realize the importance that he brings. And I think that you need to not tank next year, but just be mediocre and hope to get lucky. And if not, trade away a guy like maybe a Baylor Schreierman, where you can throw him and say they get like the 12th pick. You could throw a guy like him in there and get more assets once Tatum comes back. But I think you have to get rid of Jaylen Brown. And as much as that would affect the continuity, I think you have to do what's best for the Celtics. And I think that is what is best for the Celtics. I think you have to get rid of Kristaps Porzingis. I think if you can, get rid of Drew Holiday, just so you can have some money back. And hopefully your books would look cleaner now that some of the guys are gone. Because in just a couple years' time, with only with four players on the roster, they would be paying $180 million. In 1 year, they would pay $180 million for not even a full starting five. Which right now, their payroll for this season is $193. So you have to move very carefully with how you approach contracts because the walls are closing in on you. The second apron of the luxury tax was made for teams like Boston. It was made so that way these big market teams can't keep stacking the deck in their favor. And I don't think Boston is, because I think that Boston, with the way that Brad Stevens has made moves, has been absolutely brilliant. But I think now the rent is due, and you're going to have to pay up on that. So my final thoughts on this are, Boston, you need to make sure that you're not spending too much money and try to shed money whenever you can. Jason Tatum, hopefully you recover well and hopefully rehab treats you very nicely. And for Jaylen Brown, thank you for all that you have given to the city of Boston and to the Boston Celtics. And thank you for the Finals MVP. And congratulations on all the success you have had. But I think that this is time where, for the betterment of the Celtics, you might have to be a cap casualty. But that is all from the Scoop with Coop. I'm, of course, Coop. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I'm crazy, but stay tuned for more episodes coming soon. Bye.